It's nae picnic if your journey's on a worn, uneven track, and it's certainly nae better sitting on a donkey's back. All the people up from Nazareth and bound for Bethlehem were feeling lost, like strangers, and they wished they could gan hame. The folk all felt for Mary, she was ready to go both, and her donkey slipped and stumbled, which only made things worse. So she thought about the angel. What was that he'd said again? She'd have a son called Jesus, the saviour of all men. But she'd argued that's not possible. I'm a virgin man, you see. And the angel smiled and answered, why, that's just how it should be. She wasn't sure she understood it, but she still felt very proud. And she felt the baby moving as they walked into the crowd. They say the toon's quite busy and that rooms is hard to get. Then Mary started crying. Joe says, "Divn't worry, pet." And he asked in all the lodgings if a room was gone and spare, but he always got the answer that there wasn't any more. I've got a stable in the backyard that's had some donkeys and some coos. There was horses in last Saturday, but I think it's empty now. There's straw inside the manger that's just fresh and should be warm. You could use that for the baby, and it shouldn't take any harm. The yard's a bit untidy where we hitch the horse and carts, but it hasn't rained since Sunday, so there shouldn't be any clarts. Him and Joseph cleaned the stable, then the landlord went away, and Mary had her baby, and she laid him in the hay. There wasn't any papers and no tellies with the news, but in another country, why the message still got through. Mind, the men were very clever. People said that they were wise, 'cause they heard about the baby from a star up in the skies. Of course, the star was very special. It was shining night and day, and when it started moving, why, them men were on their way. They didn't know where they were going, whether sea or anything, but they knew there was a baby and that he would be a king. They kept asking for directions when they got to other lands, and they went and asked Don Herod, and he said he'd lend a hand. But he was an awful fella and a nasty evil brute, and he started killing puppies so they couldn't chuck him out. These men saw he was a bad un. They were in a fix all right, so they sneaked off on their journey in the middle of the night. When the star got to the stable, it had shown them all the way, and it shone on Joe and Mary and the baby in the hay. The men had brought some presents, and they were the very best. And though she could hardly believe it, Mary really was impressed. It turned out that these three fellas were fine kings and wealthy men, but they knew that little Jesus was more king than all of them. Now, I've seen some queer animals, but there's naught as queer as sheep, and they'll wander off all hour if the shepherds fall asleep. So the shepherds always watching, but the sheep gone wandering still, and they'll spend the whole night busy gunning up and down the hill. Either didn't know what happened when there was this sudden light and the music and the singing, why they nearly died of fright. When the shepherds saw the angels, they were quaking in their shoes. But the angels said, "It's all right, we're just bringing you the news, and the news is worth the telling. That's why we're in such states. We're excited about Jesus. Get on home and tell your mates. But first, you'll have to visit Jesus, 'cause he's only just been born. You can see him if you hurry, and your sheep'll take no harm. And by the way, we've got a message, and I'm giving you me word. There'll be peace brought through this baby, 'cause his name is Christ the Lord." All the angels started singing as they flew on shining wings, and the shepherds found the stable, and they stood aside the kings. Me, I never saw the stable or the baby in the hay, but I know I'll celebrate it when it comes to Christmas Day.